Good afternoon traders, and welcome to this Axia stream where we're going to be reviewing the execution of one of our elite traders over a Brexit comment that occurred on Wednesday the 5th of September. It came out at around 2 o'clock, 2:05 in the afternoon, and the comment that was released, it was from an unsighted source, but stated that Britain and Germany have abandoned key Brexit demands. So it's quite an interesting one to review because we've not actually seen, or I've not actually presented any which are triggered by UK or Brexit driven news. We're going to get straight into the execution in a second, but just want you to pay attention to, obviously this is positive for the UK, so the initial markets that this trader's looking to execute in are cable and gilt. So positive for UK. We're expecting cable to be lifted and gilts to sell off. Now, I just want you to pay attention to how there was a delayed effect in the correlated markets throughout the space as cable and euro both started to lift. This created essentially a knock-on dollar move, which then knocked on into other markets. We started to see some strengthening in the gold as the dollar came off. And it's really just presented some good opportunity in some delayed reactions in other markets, notably the bunds as well, as the gilts did start to come off as well. So bear with me, there's quite a few different markets we're looking at. With regards to the screen that we're looking at, just to note that this isn't the screen or the ladders that this trader was executing on. He has a separate machine set up to record his ladders with squashed up ladders on there. So you won't see the mouse moving around, but I assure you these are all linked to his trading PC, and it's just for the speed of his computer that he does this. So we've had a few questions via the site and YouTube regarding that. So the main markets that I want you to pay attention to are the gilts, cable, bunds, and also when you watch back, I won't talk too much about it, just pay attention to gold as well, because there was a good opportunity on that. Not that this trader was executing that, because he was quite heavy in these three key markets. Again, just taking notice of the opening prices for each of these. So this is in the lead up to the move, but there or thereabouts. Cable is trading about 38. Bunds around 14s. And gilts around 39s. So again, it's just worth paying attention to as these markets move. You can see which ones have gone and which ones haven't, or are yet to go. So just going to start this running now. Wait for the news to come out and you'll see all the ladders light up. Okay, so cable reacted very quick, which isn't unusual really. It's a thinner market in the currencies. We often see that's the first market to really blip and to really go, and can be used as a real indicator of what other markets to hit. So at first he's hit into the cable and he's got pretty good price, but still it's only 20 ticks away from the opening price. So you can see how fast a reaction that was. And he's got short in the gilt, so he's long 40 in the cable and he's short in the gilts, 160 lots. This has only gone 2 ticks at this moment. So as we watch this go through, just want you to see the delayed reaction in the gilts, and as such, bunds has hardly even moved as well. Okay, so we can see cable's pushed up and taken the highs. He's actually added in, he had 80 lots in at one point in this position, and gilts, he's added a little bit more into this position, I believe, but hasn't of yet started scaling out of his gilts position, and hasn't of yet executed within the bunds. You can see the bunds really only come off a couple of ticks, but cable's pushing hard through the highs. You can also see gold has just started to push up through the highs again, just taking note of that market. With regards to all the other bonds within this space, bobbles are through the lows, and really, as long as this cable is lifting and making new highs, he wants to stay in this gilts position. But just see at what point, as cable continues to move high and gilts come off, he then executes in the bunds towards the lows. Okay, so cable just keeps pushing through the highs, a very aggressive move. Gilts haven't really upticked at this point. It's just offering over, good volume. And bunds, he's quite content to hit towards the lows in the bunds. I haven't got the chart here, but if you do manage to go back and just look at the chart of the day, say the 5 minute or even the 1 minute compressed for the bunds, you can notice we were trying to offer all day, and we'd offer down hard, but not really have enough follow through or enough conviction. Bearing in mind, bunds was rolling on this day as well. So we were grinding up, and just every time we tried to push low, you could see that the intent was there, but just wasn't really getting anywhere. So this was kind of what was needed to really open up the bond space and allow these bunds to come off. So he's now short 160 bunds, 190 gilts, and you'll notice he hasn't actually taken anything out of his gilt position yet. Cable, he's been working out and working back in, but holding around 80 lots in this position. Bearing in mind, one thing that we were all paying attention to, this source wasn't named, so always in the back of our minds, there could be a denial. Although it's coming from various kind of news sources, Bloomberg, I'm not sure if it was on Reuters or not, but all across Twitter, the denial was always in the back of our mind. So you have to be ready in this situation to get out and liquidate very quickly in the event that this comes out as a denial. So despite hitting the lows in bunds, cable's still pushing higher, still holding towards the higher and actually making new highs, and bunds hasn't been able to take 10's bid at this stage. Gilt's still coming off, holding towards the lows. Okay, we've just seen there was one bounce back in the cable. Now, something that quite often happens with these strong aggressive cable moves is once they're extinguished, you'll see a fast retracement. If not a large proportion of the move, it will certainly retrace and then hold and put an inverted V reversal at highs. The fact that this tried to offer and then came back and took the highs again very quickly, it's a good indication that this move still has some more to go. It's already done a point. Okay, so we started at 128.38. We're now at 129.38, or thereabouts. Gilts has come off, say, 15 ticks, 14 ticks by now, and bunds from its starting position has still only come off sort of 5-6 ticks. So, there's still meat in this bund move as far as this trader's concerned. He's scaled out of a large proportion of his cables by now. I think a lot of that was on that initial pullback. He laid some offers so that if he was to take the high again, he's given an opportunity to get out. So he's out of about 60% of his size in cable and half of his size in the gilts. See, bunds just holding towards the lows here, not really doing very much. And then as cable goes for a second move, the gilts start to come off further, we should see the bunds start to gather some more momentum. Still being relatively conservative with how he's exiting this bund position. Still feels like it has more to go. It's a lagging market. This move is sustained. Cable's still pushing and holding the highs. It's quite unusual. It just shows some real intent, and there's There's buyers and sellers in this market and people looking to get some business done off the back of this comment. Okay, the price action just starting to slow down a little bit in cable. Still not rushing to get out of the trade, still seeing if there is another leg. But Bund, you can see now, has come off about 10 ticks, 11 ticks from its opening price. And Gilts is just holding around this 12s level. And we can see the euro here still pushing through its highs. This is where the dollar move really started to come into play, and you can see the dollar weakening against cable and gilts, and I think yen as well, but I'm not sure where that is. But you see gold still pushing through the highs. There's still potentially more of this move to be done, and as such, he's actually added back into his Bund's position, I believe, and is just scaling out again. So as the gilts starting to push the low, cable pushing through the highs for another leg, he's still looking to get in some more in his gilts position and in his bunds. He wants to stay in this trade till the markets tell him that he's wrong. There's so many correlated markets in play here that it should be quite visible when this move comes to an end. You'll see gold coming off, cable coming off, gilts pushing higher, and bunds and bobbles starting to just hold or bid over a couple of ticks as well. Nearly 20 ticks, gilts have gone 35 ticks, and cable is up 1.2% or something along those lines, but still pushing the highs. Cable, gold and euros still pushing the highs, as this created a knock-on effect for the dollar to weaken. So see this start to slow down now. As always, with those of you that have seen the execution of this trader, he's not going to get back in with big size now if he feels another leg's coming in. He might add in to try to sustain his involvement in the move, but in all, he's quite content with getting large size in early, scaling out relatively quickly, although the fact that this was such a sustained move, he actually managed to stay in the trade for 5 minutes on a high velocity, high volume move. That's quite a long time to be in with the sort of size he was in with, particularly in the bonds. So I think the main thing to take from this is, first off, we can see the correlations that are now in play for these Brexit comments. We can be ready to hit cable. If we can't get a good price in cable, be prepared to hit gilts. If you can't get a good price in gilts and the bunds haven't gone, there's still a trade for you there. You don't need to be chasing the market, hitting aggressively at lows, especially in a thinner market like cable, which can be you can be subject to a real aggressive rip back, when there are other markets still in play that are safer options, and then you can just use these as indicators to keep yourself in the trade. As long as cable's taking new highs, and as long as the dollar continues to weaken across the board, there's no real reason to be getting out aggressively. Fair enough, take some size off, trickle out, but no real reason to be getting out really aggressively. You could have taken a smash and grab on this trade and he would have made maybe 30% of what he ended up. So he made 85, 90k on this one trade in 5 minutes, but the real money came in from knowing the correlations, knowing what markets he wanted to hit, and recognizing that something aggressive is happening in cable for it to keep taking those highs. There were shouts around the office that maybe this isn't the hugest thing when it first came out, but trust the reaction in the markets. Another thing that I just want to draw your attention to is, mentioned before, we didn't know what the source was, spent quite a bit of time just after this move trying to tie this to a specific source and couldn't. So as such, we were actually quite ready for the denial when it did happen. So always be prepared that later in the day it ended up coming out about 4:30, or I think 23 minutes past 4 if you want to look on the same day. We had a denial, and you can see the same markets reversing. You know, it's a bit trickier, and quite often you do want to trade it more as a smash and grab on the denial. We'll see if we can get some footage of another one for you at another time. But just know now which correlations are in play so you're able to execute well going forward on any subsequent Brexit comments.